pretty awesome, isn't it? Pretty powerful, poignant. There's a couple of things I want you to think about. Tim and I are going to talk about a couple of things as we bring this and wrap this up tonight. But the first thing is this, and everybody in here did get a survey. But I want to ask you a question. How many of you believe what the Bible says that all men are sinners? I mean, you believe that? Raise your hand. Then let me ask you a question. How many of you believe that all men struggle to some degree with sexual issues? I mean, Jesus said if you look at a woman and you lust, that's sin. Okay? You believe that? Okay? So, I'm glad we're on the same footing here. Okay? So there's nobody here pointing fingers at somebody else and saying, hey, you're a bad guy. You know? And in fact, just a quick little survey of the survey that we did tonight, and we probably need to pass it out and do it again, you know, after that video. But just 263 of the guys in here filled them out. Only 25 of them said never viewed pornography. And those who met with teenagers and teen-year-olds. So, there's nobody in here going, let me point my finger at you and say how bad you are. Now, by no means are we saying that that's okay. Okay, we're not saying that's okay. We're just saying you're not alone in this, all right? That's part of this whole deal with ManUp is, listen, we're not going to take anybody in our church, any man in our church, and put them out on an island and say, you're in this all by yourself. Okay, we are going to stand with you. That's part of our passion and our determination to help one another win this war. You know, Nick sent me a quote today, and he talked about accountability. It was a great quote. So what we really need accountability is some warriors. Some men to stand by each other and say, listen, we're going to be warriors together in this battle, and we're going to win. Not because we're strong, and not because we're just strength in numbers, but because Jesus is strong enough to beat this. All right? And so we can be holy men, be used by God to transform culture for the glory of God. And that's what real men do. That's what real godly men do. And so we want to be that. And we want to help us get there. I want Tim to come. I want to share just a little bit about who these guys are. Okay? And then talk about something that I think we need to get to tonight about secrecy.
Yeah, these guys are, as I said, the first time I watched that video, within a couple of days, I was emailing one of them, and I just said, man, you just tore the heart out of every guy in that room. and how did you get here? And I ended up getting these guys, and the first guy you saw on the screen, Bernie, is a pastor, the African-American guy, he's a pastor. John Manfield, you saw up here on Sunday, he's a recording artist in Nashville, and he's got a new CD out. His career's about to blow up. He met with Mark the other day, and he's like Mark. He wants to stay connected to the church. He's the worship leader in Virginia, but his CD's taken off, and he's just got a real heart for God. And you saw Shelly, his wife, here too. And the guy with the glasses, his name's John Kozar. He runs a ministry in Orlando. He's a very successful businessman. He runs a ministry in Orlando called Unshackled, and he goes around the country and knocks on doors at churches and says, can I come here to your church and talk with your men about this issue? And some of the pastors go, please come talk about this. I can't even bring it up. Please come. And then some pastors say, no, we don't have that problem here. He was actually at a huge church out in Texas. I told Pastor Tim the story. The pastor said, no, we don't have that problem here. And he said, well, I'm just going to leave this DVD on your desk and just call me if you need me. And John was getting on the airplane, walking down the jetway, and his phone rang, and all he heard was on the other end of the phone. He said, hello, and it was that pastor. And he said, it's me. And it's me, The other guy that sounded like a theologian up there is Michael Cusick. He's got a story that I wouldn't even dare to tell you. I mean, it's pretty rough stuff. But he's an amazing guy. He runs a ministry out in Colorado called Restoring the Soul. And his whole ministry is about just talking about this issue that's destroyed in the church. And John Manfield talked about how we just can't run as men because we're tied down by these secrets. We can't worship, we can't run. Some of you have probably been asked to serve in ministry, and you think, man, not me. Because I got this thing in my life that's eating my lunch all the time. And these guys have walked out into the light. They do events around the country called Into the Light, where they say, man, nothing good lives in the dark. This stuff thrives in darkness and secrecy. flourishes and it grows, and they've just gone around the country and said, we're going to walk out into the light. Plant a flag in the ground. Tim and I talked about this a bunch at this church. Plant a flag in the ground and say no more. I want the next generation to run where we stumbled, like John said. How many of you have kids? How many of your kids under the age of 18 do you think are going to be exposed to hardcore pornography before they graduate from high school? Because I know the number. Every single one of them. Every one of them. And there are statistics and
listen, guys, I didn't mean it's intentional. We're talking about this today. I think White House, some combination of WhiteHouse.com or something, is a pornography site. A senior adult in our church told me just 2 weeks ago that he was researching KOA campground. He didn't even use his computer. He was just trying to find a KOA. He tagged it in and went straight to a porno site. It freaked him out. And listen, you can be biased, but the truth is, by the time they graduate, I mean, we're under an attack, and it's unique because years ago you had to go to the drugstore and buy this stuff, and now he walks right in front door of your house and pops on the computer screen, and it beats you down.
Hey, I was at a wedding recently. I mean, this stuff's permeating every part of our culture. Every part of our culture. It's a much larger problem than maybe. I mean, I didn't know until I started working with these guys. I went to Nashville and I met with them. I said, what can I do, man? I don't even lose anymore. What can I do? And started hearing the statistics and seeing how there are people out there swinging away at this stuff, man, and they're not getting any help because the church is not talking about it, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs, please, this is tearing us to pieces, and that's, and hey, let's give him a hand. Playing this out in the life. He told me yesterday, talking about his bird, he just wants to leave, man, it's not happening. But I was at a wedding not too long ago. And after the wedding was over, typically, the DJ comes out, and dancing starts, and my wife and I are standing over there. Next thing you know, my little boy is going, will you please get me out of here? I turned around, there's girls rubbing all over each other on the dance floor, dancing. And I told my wife, I said, we might as well take him to a strip joint and go on a lap dance. And that's what he was looking at, And it hit me on the way home. Those aren't lesbian girls. Those are girls that are trying to give those boys what they want because they've been looking at pornography all the time. That's what's going on in our culture. That's what's happening. And it's ripping us to pieces. And, I don't know. I bet if we passed that survey out again, we might have gotten a little different response. That was pretty powerful. But the point of this whole thing, guys, is that it cannot live in secret in the church. And I want to tell you something. Steve Siler, the guy that made this CD, is a songwriter in Nashville. Gold records and Dove awards all over his office. And he told me in the beginning, he said, Tim, I want to go protest. And this was just a conversation we had. He said, initially, he wanted to go protest in front of strip joints and write our congressman. And we started talking through this thing. And we started talking about how in the world can we turn around and point at the world and tell them how bad they are when we're not talking about this in church, And it's killing us. We're going to point our finger at those guys and say, you're scumbags, but we're all okay. $13.3 billion industry. Christians are participating in